Today is September 8th, 2019. Wanted to talk about the hurricane that struck the Bahamas, most specifically the Abacos. I think it's kind of fitting that I'm here in Alamorada today at the Hurricane Monument from the 1935 Labor Day hurricane that killed hundreds of people. Matter of fact, right behind me here, there are some 300, the remains of some 300 victims of that hurricane that were cremated, and their ashes are entombed here in this tiled over sarcophagus behind me. But what I most wanted to talk about is what's going on in the Abacos right now with hurricane relief and what people can do to help those people there. I myself went through a Category 5 hurricane, Hurricane Andrew, in 1992. I lost everything, so I have a pretty unique perspective about what that's like to be there during a hurricane and during the recovery process afterwards. And having spent 9 months in the Bahamas last year, a good 3+ months of it being in the Abacos, I'm very familiar with the area. I have lots of friends there. And my heart really goes out to them. Now, I've seen some of the relief efforts of items that are being donated. I can tell you firsthand, don't send clothes. I mean, that's the absolute worst thing that you could send. My own personal experience, I mean, I can tell you from after Andrew, the mountains and mountains of clothes that just went to the landfill. And that's because, once they get rained on, nobody's going to take them. There's no place to house or warehouse or store that kind of stuff once it's in the islands, on the ground where the relief is needed the most. Let me get to that in a second. That's the biggest number one thing. Like when people used to come around after Hurricane Andrew and ask me, what I needed or what they could do, there was very little that anybody could do for me, and there was very little that I needed other than there really was very little that I needed other than money, or like that I used to tell people was I need a place to live, I need a house, and I don't want to just go live with somebody. I wanted to house myself, but my house was destroyed. I mean, I came back, I had a floor left. I was also not insured. That didn't help things for me either. But the problem is having a place to keep anything that somebody's going to donate to you, because once it gets rained on, it's just absolutely ruined. So you can't really accept donations. Being a proud person, you're really reluctant to accept donations to begin with from somebody or charity. But clothes, don't send clothes. Water, yes, for God's sake, yes, send water. And I don't mean these stupid little water bottles, one-use water bottles. Send the best size water you can get is gallon jugs. That's mostly what most people are accustomed to buying in the Bahamas anyway, is gallon jugs of water. The water that was in Marsh Harbor and a lot of these places was not very good water to begin with. So most of the people there are accustomed to buying gallon jugs of water. That's probably the best size water to move around. Excuse me, I mean, I'm sitting out here in the sun, it's blazing here. So send gallon jugs of water. You can even send those like 5-gallon jugs, the cardboy size, like for the water cooler, you can send those. But the gallon size jugs of water are the absolute best. As far as food goes, don't send anything that needs to be refrigerated. Don't send anything that needs to be cooked. There's no real way to cook anything. There's no power, there's no propane, there's no fuel. Sending generators, to maybe like to people that are huddled together, that have houses. I mean, yeah, I don't know. But the problem, like when you send generators and chainsaws, these are great items, but you have to be able to refuel them, and they burn a lot of fuel. it's not really the best way to help right now. Best way, water, like I said, gallon jugs. Food, send anything like MREs, dehydrated food, stuff that you can eat without preparing. Anything that you can eat without preparing, snacks, energy bars. Because all you're doing during the daytime is you're cleaning up. You're spending all your time cleaning up, and it's literally, just eating, shoving food in your mouth while you're working, and you just keep going 24/7. You go to bed at night, you get back up, sun up. It's pretty much like sun up to sundown kind of a routine. You work when you have light out, and that's another thing. People, it's great to send flashlights and batteries and stuff like that. Eventually these batteries are going to wear out, and there's no place to resupply batteries. There was a product that I've been using for about 2 years now. I was kind of like, I kind of thumbed my nose at it initially when I first got one, but so many sailors do use them, and it's called the Luci Light. It's made by a company, you can buy them on Amazon, Walmart sells them. It's a little round light. If I wasn't shooting such raw data here, I would, or such video, I would put a link. Maybe I can try to put a link in the description. I'll see if I can find something. But they're little solar-powered lights. You put them out in the sun. Like today, the thing will be charged up fully in, I don't know, 4 to 6 hours if you depleted the whole thing and left it on all night. But if you use it sparingly throughout the night, you can get quite a bit of light out of it for several days, if not a week. So, really good light source. Excellent light source. They're on Amazon. The price fluctuates around a little bit. They're about 20 bucks a piece. Last time I bought them at Walmart, they were 15 or 16 bucks a piece. Maybe a little pricey for some, not so much for others, but if you could donate those, that would be the best light source that you could donate to anybody in the islands. Because the ones I have now I've had for two years, and they're still going strong. Don't require batteries. You put them out in the sun, they recharge back up, they're good to go. And they will run all night long if you left it on. So that's a good light source. Food, like I said, it's kind of a tricky thing. Anything that people could eat just without having to prepare it. And that's another thing. You don't even really want to cook a meal. You work all day long clearing hurricane debris or trying to. Well, that's what you're starting off doing, is clearing hurricane debris. And then, once the sun goes down, you're so tired, all you want to do is go to bed. That's the last thing you want to do is try to cook a meal. Even if you had a camp stove or a barbecue grill, or even cooking on an open fire, because there's certainly going to be enough wood laying around to cook on open fires. But man, there's just really, you don't have that much energy to even doing that. So. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say is I've seen like a lot of these large ships are loading up tons and tons of supplies to ship over there. It's great, it's beautiful, but don't send it all in one shot. There's no place to house this stuff. Once the next rain bands or next storm comes through, all this stuff's going to be ruined. It's going to, and then they're going to be back to having nothing again for relief. So don't. If there's people stateside that have warehouse space that can kind of like house things and, send stuff over there, trickle a little bit at a time. And the Abacos, that's another thing. Like, all right, Sandy Point runway's open, Treasure Key runway's open, but they're only using it to evacuate people, not really so much even bring in very many supplies. The airport for Marsh Harbor is way outside of town. It's quite a bit of a drive, even a car. I have rode my bicycle from Marsh Harbor to the airport a few times. Yeah, man, it's a good bike ride. It's not like you're gonna be able to drag supplies back, and I don't think there's any vehicles probably in Marsh Harbor or even on Great Abaco that are still operating because the storm surge is so high. Everything just got wiped out. So there's no infrastructure, there's no electricity, there's no fuel. So that becomes another problem, and that's a problem that I experienced. I mean, I lived in a rural area of Dade County, out in the Redlands, just north of Homestead, and relief supplies came into these areas after the storm, but they only had like a few distribution points. So if you didn't have any way to get there, you didn't get any kind of relief. And then, like back then, there was no internet. We were out of cell phones were just getting started. I mean, most people used pagers back then. But as a victim of the hurricane, I had no way of knowing what kind of support or relief was out there, even if I did need it. So that's kind of a bit of an issue. In the Abacos, there is no radio. People use cell phones to communicate. They use VHF radios to communicate, and all that infrastructure is no more. So a lot of people don't even know if supplies are showing up. They're not even going to know where to go to get them if they could get them. So people who are bringing supplies, they need to keep that in mind and try to get these supplies disseminated out to the more far-reaching areas. Now, you can't bring like a cruise ship to the Abacos. The ferry from Nassau is like the largest ship really that could run anything up to the Marsh Harbor area. But it's a big, large area that's been affected, from probably Toulouse, Lubbers, Elbow Cay, Marsh Harbor, Man o' War, Green Turtle, Great Guana, Manjack, Treasure Key. I mean, all these areas are just decimated, wiped out. And the only way that people could get around, prior to the storm was either on private vessels, which have all pretty much been destroyed, or on the Aubrey ferry service, which has pretty much all been destroyed. And I got to put a shout out, great props to the Aubreys. They offered free evacuation service for the out islands into Marsh Harbor before the storm. They didn't have to do that, but they did. And I mean, but I don't believe there's a ferry that survived, a ferry boat. So, and these were small boats to begin with. You could probably put maybe like 40 people on at a time at the most. Folks, like I said, it's great that people want to help. Probably the best help, or the best way to get supplies there, is if they stage stuff maybe in Nassau, or if stuff came from the States on small boats. Small boats could get to some of these outlying areas. The problem is if they're motor yachts or power vessels, there's not going to be any fuel for a return trip, once they get there. I understand that there's fuel in Bimini, there's fuel in Nassau, there's fuel in the berries at Chub Key. But probably the best way to get supplies right now to the islands, and even to be able to move people around, would be on sailboats, crazy enough as that sounds. It's a lot slower getting there, but you're going to get there and you're going to be able to operate without fuel. So again, 1 gallon jugs of water, dry goods, snacks, things that people could eat, like MREs or any kind of meal ready to eat kind of thing. That's the best stuff to be sending. I know people have asked for a lot of formula for kids. I don't think there's really that many newborns that were, if you sent a pallet, just 1 pallet of that, it would probably last 6 months. There's so few newborns, I believe, in that area. And then these are the kind of people who are being evacuated down in Nassau. And that's a whole nother plan that I think is not the best, but that's not for me to really say. So if you want to help out, On Elbow Cay, the Hopetown Volunteer Fire Rescue Department, they're coordinating a way that you can donate directly to people strictly on Elbow Cay. Pretty much every key, Man of War key, they have a GoFundMe thing going on. Green Turtle has help actually here in Key West. Key West is the sister city for Green Turtle, and they're trying to coordinate relief efforts for Green Turtle. New Plymouth, there on Green Turtle. Boy, I haven't seen really any. Well, I've seen one aerial picture. Every place is really torn up. They're saying that the 1935 hurricane is the only hurricane that's comparable really to Dorian. I can tell you, living through Andrew and seeing the after pictures of Dorian versus Andrew, I would almost say Andrew was a more powerful hurricane than Dorian. Not that this is the who's a bigger hurricane, but at least in the Abacos, there's still pine trees still standing. After Andrew, all the pine trees were down. They had snapped off and were laid down. Andrew was never. There was never an official wind speed, or the highest wind speeds are unknown, because all the anemometers were blown away during the storm. So I know somebody who worked at Turkey Point during the storm, and their anemometer blew away at 200 miles an hour. I don't know what the last record was at Homestead Air Force Base was, but that was I think what I'm trying to say here is, I mean, this isn't really. I don't want people to be alarmist that this is global warming. I mean, this has been going on 1935, 1992, and here now in 2019. We've had storms like this. They just don't come along too often, thankfully, but they do happen. And when they do, there's great loss of life, and there's certainly even a greater loss of property. And it takes years to recover. There was T-shirts going around after Andrew. It's like the storm didn't kill us, but the recovery will. And the recovery is harder than going through the storm. It really is. It's years and years and years of rebuilding, trying to get things up and running again, trying to get some sort of normalcy to your life back. And I'm in Key West right now. I was waiting out hurricane season, debating on whether to go to Mexico or back to the Bahamas. And I can tell you here in the Keys, just from Irma, and I went through Irma in 2017 as well, but there's still remnants of Hurricane Irma here in the Keys from 2 years ago. So, and this is a first world country that has road access and infrastructure, and the Bahamas, they're not equipped for this. And this isn't the first time that they experienced it. This isn't even the first time that Marsh Harbor's been wiped out. That Marsh Harbor has been destroyed in 35 and in 1926, the 1926 storm. And Miami was wiped out in 1926 as well. So anyway, just don't forget about your friends, neighbors, and our neighbors over in the Bahamas. This isn't going to be like a short-term thing. This is going to be months, years of relief support that these people are going to need. So y'all be good. Y'all have a great day.